Hi everybody, welcome to the Claquette Club. My name is Joshua Hilberman. I really want to thank Avalon Rathgeb, Old Kent Road, for having me as part of your tap class series. So I look forward to teaching you some stuff today from the Claquette Club, Belgium. Today I'm going to be sharing with you some material I learned from, a lot of it from personal relationships with some of the great African American masters of tap dance. I wrote their names up on the board. We're going to start with the concept of a cramp roll. I learned directly from Jimmy Slide, a wonderful dancer from Boston. Then I'm going to teach you a step that I kind of made up, but it's really in the spirit and honoring Buster Brown, very much in the style of James Buster Brown, how he danced. Then there's a kind of classic lost step. I believe I learned from Heather Cornell. I'm not really sure the origin. I learned this step so long ago, but the credit goes to Baby Lawrence. Baby Lawrence and Buster Brown, both from Baltimore, Maryland in the United States. Then I stole a little break and stuck it in there because I just do things like that. And so there's a little break from a famous African-American dancer, Carnell Lyons, who was from Kansas City, who lived in Berlin for the rest of his life. And we're going to finish with a classic bit from LaVaughn Robinson, who was a dancer from Philadelphia. So we have a bunch of East Coast dancers here, Boston, Baltimore, we have one from Kansas City via Berlin, and we have Philadelphia. So these are sort of great heroes of great black dancers in American history. Before we get into the teaching and learning part of the class, I just wanted to show you the material. So we're going to start off with this Buster Brown style time step, and then we're going to get right into the Baby Lawrence step, and then we're going to finish with the LaVaughn Robinson. I mashed them all together so you would have a chunk of material to work on during your confinement. A one, a two, a one, a two, a three, a four. I'm going to try to approach this a little differently and not necessarily lead you through a class like we're in class. I'm going to try to give the information, and then you have the advantage to stop your player and digest the information and then use it like that. So rather than have repetitions where we pretend we're in a tap class, I'm just going to try to deliver some information. First bit of information, cramp rolls. Most people agree normal cramp roll could be considered step, step, heel, heel. Always, I think, in a cramp roll, it's important to know what leg you finish on at the end. So if we're going to agree on a normal cramp roll, I'm going to say step, step, heel. That's it, 4-sound cramp roll. That's important. The other cramp roll that you kind of need for the basic cramp rolls is what many people call press cramp roll. That's 3 sounds. Very good, huh? See, all up there, 1, 2, 3. And always the leg coming up. Press cramp roll never ends on the floor. Press cramp roll ends up. 4-sound cramp roll. With the press cramp roll, you get the cramp roll that switches feet. So I prefer to think of 3 sounds and 4 sounds and then build from there. So if I were to put a flap on my left foot with a press cramp roll on my right foot, I arrive at this cramp roll. There's people call them C's and Z's and around the world and to the moon. Anyway, I prefer to think of a flap, which is a change of weight, and a press cramp roll on the other side. So to switch feet, I'm really not thinking right, left, left, right. I'm thinking one leg is doing something like a flap, and the other leg is using the press. So with that, you can get pretty quickly the cramp roll that switches feet and the cramp roll that doesn't switch feet. The other variation that we're going to use today, and maybe if you've learned Buster Brown's dance Laura, there's a step and a press cramp roll. So there's a 4-sound switching foot cramp roll. Turn around for a second. So normal cramp roll on the right side. There I'm thinking right, left, right, left. To stay on that, to switch feet, I'm going to say step and then press. Or I could say the other side, I could go step. And I'm not talking about rhythm because rhythm is infinite and all of these things can be done in many different rhythms. I'm just trying to get the nuts and bolts of which cramp roll stay on one foot and which cramp roll switch feet. So if I were going to go switch foot with 5 sounds, I would make it a flat, and then a press, and then I would make it a flat. And again, there's a multitude of rhythms to get you there. So we have a 4-sound normal cramp roll, other side. Just showing you quickly all the possibilities. We have press cramp roll. And we have other side press cramp roll. We have a step and a press. That switches sides. So step, changes weight, and a press. Seen Helen Duffy's encyclopedic cramp roll series, so I know you've done some cramp rolls. Flat and a press. And that's sort of a basic cramp roll primer, which leads to a lesson that I had in New York City with about 30 other people when there was a studio called American Tap Dance Center, and the teacher was Jimmy Slide. And Jimmy Slide didn't like to teach, and Jimmy Slide made us all suffer to learn this cramp roll over an hour and a half. We all left there with the Jimmy Slide cramp roll. And it's significant because Slide was maybe the most swinging tap dancer of his generation. If you think about jazz music and then bebop, and think about the really great improvising artist, Jimmy Slide has to be up there at the top of the list. So it's significant. What Jimmy Slide, after we suffered for the hour and a half, the Jimmy Slide cramp roll was a switch foot cramp roll with 5 sounds and a stomp on the end. And I would say, let me just show it to you. Turn it around the other side. Flat, press, and I had a teacher in Boston called that a planche. I don't really have a name for it. It's a stomp that takes off. You can also, there's a lot of endings of this. Anyway, we're going to use a stomp that takes off the ground. So, ba diddly boom boom, 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 diddly boom boom. We're going to use that exact same cramp roll with 2 different rhythms. That's the swinging version, and that's what Slide taught us at the end. He made us all go one at a time to try to figure out a cramp roll. We all failed. That was the end of the lesson, the Jimmy Slide cramp roll. In the Baby Lawrence step after that, we're going to use those same 6 sounds, ba diddly da da, those same 6 sounds with a square or Latin feel. Ba-diddly-ya-ga. Ba-diddly-ya-ga. The same footwork. It's a flat, a press, and 1 sound at the end. So you can inflect it with a swing. 1, 1, 3, 1, 2. Da dee dee doom doom. Or you can put 16th notes underneath it so it sounds like ba-diddly-ya-ga. Ba-diddly-ya-ga. And they're the same with different inflections. Okay, so just to recap our basic cramp rolls, I'll turn around so you can see it. 4-sound cramp roll, what I call normal cramp roll. Then the other side. 3-sound press cramp roll. Press cramp roll. Buster Brown's variation in lower with a step to the back. Or a step anywhere, step, and step. 5-sound variation. Jimmy Slide's cramp roll. swinging. And in the baby Lawrence step, ba-diddy-ya-ba. I hope that's helpful. Okay, so I created this step sort of in the spirit of Buster Brown. I was with him a lot. I spent a lot of time, I had a close personal friendship with James Buster Brown. He was a wonderful man, very sweet, and a swinging dancer. Danced with Duke Ellington and so many greats. Anyway, this is what I call the Buster Brown time step. Flap, and then the Jimmy Slide cramp roll. So we're going to start on the right foot over. So again, over the left foot. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-dilly-ya-ba. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-dilly-ya-ba. That's the first measure, first bar. The second bar is a, right foot. Put it here, you're going to bring it back on a flat for a step. Then you're going to have a flat brush, you could say stomp brush. And then you're going to have ball change. And then you're going to have a step. The rhythm is boom, 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 boom. Nothing to the rhythm at all, but it's a little bit complicated. Make sure you change that weight at the end. So if I start, I'm showing you the side one more time. I'm starting on the right foot. Especially so you can see that ball change, how it propels you forward. At home, that's probably the maximum of your space. I tried to use all these steps so that they would fit in our little confinement regions where we're all dancing. So let me show you that right side and left side slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. And obviously, here's where you hit pause and do that 55,000 times. In this Jimmy Slide variation, he showed with that foot coming off the floor. In this Buster Brown time step, that foot stays on the floor. That's the same. It just depends on the context of what's coming after it. That's all. Sometimes that's going to be a scuff. Sometimes things change. You got to be ready for everything. So we have 3 times: right, left, right. Let me show you that. Actually, I'm going to show 4 times. 2, 3, 4. That's 8 bars worth of time step. We're going to do that 3 times. That's a 2-bar repeating step. So it's like a classic tap dance thing. 3 times your 2-bar step gives you 6 bars, and then we're ready for the 2-bar break. In this case, that's going to start on the left foot. The break's going to look like this. So it's the same thing. You just cut off the first 2 flaps and go right into that cramp roll. A 1 and a 2. And then you add a stomp offbeat. A 1 and a 2 and. A 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4. That's a flat foot there. So the break starts with a 1 and a 2, a 3, a 4. And then you use the same thing as in the step. Step. Brush, ball, touch. I faked a little transition to get these steps all together. So instead of, normally I finish that at the same as the step. 1 and a 2, a 3, a 4, and then I go a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. That would be the complete version. But here I faked a little transition to get you into the Baby Lawrence step on 4. So that's 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, touch at the end. So here's 3 times the Buster Brown time step with the break. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to show that exact same thing from the side so you can see the forward and back action of the legs. A 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. The lineage of this next step is honestly unknown because there's a famous underground tap dance improviser called Groundhog who pretty much nobody ever saw. And the step is credited to Groundhog, but maybe Baby Lawrence had something to do with it, or Baby Lawrence took it and learned it because there was a lot of stealing and passing on. And maybe that goes to Gregory Hines, maybe that goes to Heather Cornell. There's a lot of maybes involved in this step, but it's a fabulous little piece and it starts on 4 and it looks like this. And 4 and 1. With a stamp, touch, stamp, stomp. That stomp is part of a drag, and then a shove. And 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 3, 4, one more time, and 3. That's right, and 4, and 1, 2, badilia ba. Now we're going to hit that Jimmy slide cramp roll inflected in a 16th note feel. So ending with a scuff. So from the side, I'm going to show you slowly. And 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Ta, 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 oo, ah, badilia da. 1, and 2, and 3. 1, 2, 1 more. That's how you get into the step. Then there's a little paddle roll press cramping thing that starts with a press on 1, 1. I think it might be easier right now to see it from the side. 1 and 2. Brush, step, heel. Double paddle. So we have 1. 4 and 1 and 2 at the end, big brush, heel, toe knock, heel, stamp. You see the words come pretty slow. I much prefer the singing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Back to 1. Ra, ta, ta, ta. So you get into this step on 4, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So that's your first 2 bars. And then there's 3 variations of that. They're not at all the same, but they're close. 1, and 2, and 3. Right? Same cramp roll, same middle part. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2. I'm going to do that whole thing a little bit slower. I'm going to do the first time and the second time a little bit slower. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Third time. 1 and a 2 and 1 E and a 2 and. The third variation has a extended cramp roll section that goes into the break. So the third variation sort of leaves the first two. The first two are more or less the same with a little variation. And then the third one starts on 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. No, that's not right. So, it's okay. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. So you're using instead of the flap cramp roll Jimmy slide bit, using the Buster Brown lower cramp roll with a stump, with a stamp. Change of weight, whatever you want to call your change of weight with the flat foot, that's what's happening. That's 4 sound switching cramp roll, which I think of as a step, press, and a stamp. And that's going to roll over the bar line a little bit. So you're going to start with 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me try that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that gets us into the break. So one more time from behind, you can see it. 2, 3, 4. So we're going to put that all together. From the first, second, third, that's what put that all together means. 1, 2, and 3. Show you that also from the side so you can see a little bit of action from 2 angles. 1, 2, Now we're going to go ahead and put the break on this step. It's a break, I don't remember what the break was originally, so I just stole one, and I stole it from Carnell Lyons. That's why I talk about Carnell Lyons. So it's a break from a dance by Carnell Lyons, and it goes like this: 2, 3, 4. And that's pretty straight ahead with some swinging stomps like shim sham type footwork, and then it ends with the Jimmy slide cramp roll, but putting your weight on it at the end. So instead of that floating stomp with a stamp, change of weight. Starts on and 1, 2, 3, 4. So stamp, stamp, brush, step. Let me face you so you can hear it. Stamp, stamp, brush, step, stomp, brush, step, stomp, brush, step. Follow that is the transition into the cramp roll. Let me turn around so you can see it. And 1, and 2. You might notice I'm a big believer in the action that picks up. All the old time dancers talk about picking up your feet, and in the rhythm time step traditions, a lot of that has been lost. So you see a lot of extra motion here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's your break. So you don't want to hit it. You want to have life in your knees and life especially. I talk a lot about the relationship between your heel and your butt. You don't want to kick yourself, but you want loose action there. 1, 2. I just faked that break. I just mixed and matched because why not? Let me show you that break one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that comes from Daka Daka Dita, from those Buster Brown cramp rolls of the third variation on the step. 3, 4, and. is that it slows down, but that's really just to switch the relationship between double time, because that step is in double time and that break is swinging. So it's the relationship between time and double time, or double time and half time, however you want to think about swinging time and straight time. I'm going to show you the whole thing. 1 and 2 and 3. Always, with every tap dancer, your observations about what you see and what you hear are as important as the words coming out of my mouth or any teacher's mouth. So if you see a detail or you hear a detail and you think it's not exactly what's being described, it's probably correct. Because there's sometimes a distance between what I'm thinking about and saying and trying to get across and what is actually going on. So, use all your senses even though we're not really in the same room. Let me show you that one more time. 1 and 2 and 3. When I went to my first tap festival as a student in 1987, I was able to take classes with Steve Condos. I studied with Lynn Daly from the West Coast Jazz Tap Ensemble. I studied with Sarah Petronio, the wonderful dancer, and I also studied with a dancer from Philadelphia, LaVon Robinson. And I became friends with all of those dancers, but LaVon and I shared a friendship that lasted more than 15 years until his death. I'm not sure the year that LaVon died, but every time we saw each other, it was like a sort of brotherhood, and he was a very supportive and sweet man, especially in including my trips into tap dance controversy. LaVon was always there for me. So anyway, in that first festival, this is a bit that I learned from him, and he used to teach classes called Bits and Pieces. He was like the master, he was paddle and roll style dancer from Philadelphia, and he was the master of the 2-bar unit. So he could dance for hours, mixing and matching his little 2-bar creations that were just infinite in variety and interest, even in the small sort of controlled universe of paddle and roll. So this is 16, I don't know how many bars it is. This is a piece from LaVon Robinson, and we'll go and count it as we go. It starts off with a little jump to the front and a cramp. So a jump forward, 1 2, and a stamp. And then you have scuff, heel, scuff. So the first part is 2 and 3 and 4 and. So that's inside 2, 3, 4. That's that fork sound, normal cramp roll that we started the whole day with. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And it just finishes out. Step, heel, step from the side. It's kind of a classic thing. Gene Kelly used that shape a lot. I call it the bicycle leg. Sometimes it goes backwards like that. Moses supposes. But here it's crossing over and into step here. 2, 3, 4. Stomp, curr, ramp, stomp, curr, ramp, stomp. 4 sound normal cramp rolls on the right foot. LaVon was hilarious about the use of the arms. And this was the gesture. You were not allowed to stand in his class like this because he would yell at you. You were not allowed to stand in your class like this, but this is the arms for that little bit. And he was specific. His line was, Your arms are your props. Use them. 2, 3, 4, and. Stomp, clap, clap, stomp, clap, clap, stomp. And that, you repeat that whole thing 2 times, except for the very last sound. At the very end, you're going to put your weight on it and finish on the right. So let me show you what that means. 1, 2, 3. At the end, instead of staying, I'll use that to walk forward. In confinement, it just changes in weight. So the first time it stomps, second time it stands. Now I'm just doing whatever I want to. Let me show 1, 2, 3, 4. The language of tap dance from the old time dancers was descriptive and creative and very imprecise in the sense that they didn't care too much. None of the great tap masters of the era really cared too much about terminology. So Levon had a great word for 4-tap riff. He called it a skiddly bop. Skiddly bop, and that's just I like it. Skiddly bop, skiddly bop, skiddly bop. So anyway, we're on some skiddly bops here. Let's see what we're on. 1, 2, 1, 3, and the rhythm is skiddly bop. You might say, and a 1 and. And then toe heel, and then step heel. So it's and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. But there's a half turn, which makes it a lot easier. So 1 and 2 and then you go there, 3 and 4. And then you've done your half turn and everything. You're going to do 4 of those. So you're going to go forward, back, forward, back. This is the second version. We're coming 1 and 2 and you make the turn, keep going, 3 and 4. I'm going to show you sideways because when you get off these small boards you're on, you'll be able to move. Definitely one of the coolest things I ever learned in 1987. 2 and 3 and 4. So let's just put everything together from the beginning, from the jumps and the cramps into the skiddly bops. Skiddly bops can be tricky, just practice it. You know, tap dance is supposed to be fun. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where we have it, and now we have the exciting conclusion, because seriously, you know, I was a terrible dancer when I went to that Colorado Tap Festival. I didn't know anything. I studied with Eddie Brown. How could I forget? I studied with Eddie Brown. I learned the BS chorus from Eddie Brown. I mean, the neurons were exploding, and then Levon laid out this step, which was just the coolest thing I had ever seen. was so exciting, and it's still like one of my favorite tap steps of all time. So we're going to take that apart one bar by one bar. The first bar is 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Be careful, there's no triplet in here. This is in a 16th note pattern now. Stomp, shuffle, stomp, shuffle, stomp, no. Stamp, shuffle, stamp, shuffle, stamp, shuffle, stamp. Or boom, chicka, boom, chicka, boom, chicka, boom. Hey. That's the first bar. Second bar is that famous little crossover bit that you see with Gene Kelly. And 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to be stuff, chug, step, step. Scuff, chug, step, step. Shuffle, hop, step. Heel, touch. The placement of that touch is super important. And 1, 2, 3, 4. As it's faster, there's no swing. And 1 and 2 E and a 3 and 4. So I'm going to put boom chicka boom chicka boom chicka boom bum 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 bakatiki dum 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 together a little slower. 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4. No weight goes there, touch. So that's bar 1 and bar 2. Bar 3, bar 1 and shuffle, step, touch. Pull back, and a 1 and boom boom. Taka taka ta ta. Taka taka ta ta. Taka taka ta ta. And a 1 and a 3. And a 1, a 2, and a 3, and a 4. Tiki taka, tiki boom, 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 boom. And this last part I'm showing from the side because it's step, step, heel, step. So as you're coming down from that pullback, you're going to step forward, you're moving back. That's a tricky little bit. That just takes coordination and a little bit of practice. Because as soon as you land, you're moving to the back. From the back, 3, and you're here, 4. So let's go, that's the first 3 bars. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Okay, da da da, boom boom boom, and a 1 and 2, 3 and 4. That's the 4th bar. And a 1 and 2, 3 and 4. A little skiddly, part of a riff. Weight goes there for a second. It's preparation for a turn. And there was another arm in there to get you turning. And a 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Out the turn. And a 1 and 2, 3 and 4. That's the end. 1, 2. So from the 3rd and 4th bar start 3 and 4. Let me show that again. 3 and 4. Let me show the whole 4 bar. 2, 3, 4. That comes on the heels of the Skiddly Bop series. So I'm going to take you back a little bit. 3, 4. When you turn me back on, we're going to do the whole thing. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Now I'm going to show that one more time from the side because there's also some interesting details you can get from the side view. So that's the whole Levon-Robinson combination from the side. That's going to finish our tap class for today. Thanks so much again. Here we go. I think they're cool steps. I hope you like them. Thanks a lot for tapping along. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Up. And there you have it.